Rachel Malasky. I'm a seamstress and a designer. We put so many rules around fashion. We put so many rules about what we're allowed to wear for whatever reason, cultural reasons, and I think it's important to push those boundaries and not lock ourselves into other people's beliefs or other people's rules, to feel like we have the freedom to express our own personality through fashion. I wasn't always happy with how off-the-rack clothing fit me and looked on me, so I was interested from a very young age to change what was out there and to make it look different and make it fit me better and make it fit my personality better. So I had the tools, since my mother was a seamstress, to do that. I don't think every kid out there has that, but I had it at home. So I knew if I wanted to rip those pants apart and put them back together a different way, I actually had help to do that, and it helped me be more interested in it. Not only does it help with creativity and self-expression and things like that, but it's a lucrative field. So we're sending kids to college to be doctors and lawyers and things like that, and that's great. And we need doctors and lawyers, but we also need people that do what I do. And they can make money at it, and they can succeed at it and be a professional and be a successful professional. They are viable, possible careers where you can make money, you can be successful, you can be a career person and career driven and do something in the arts. I think college is a very smart way to start this career. You can go into college. If you go to college, you get a degree in design. You can go work under other names and some really great designers and really have an amazing career that way. But self-taught is fine. And for me, working for myself really is the best thing for me. So being self-taught works for that. I can work for myself. I can be self-taught. And I don't think one is necessarily better than the other, but I think there's a lot of value in going to college. One of the young women was working on, she's already painting her clothing. So she's creating her own textiles. She didn't realize she was doing that. She's taking denim jeans or a leather jacket, and she was painting on them and creating an entirely new textile and making them something new and something different, something unique no one else will ever have. That is fashion. I do think most artists make one fatal mistake, and they don't value themselves enough, and they don't value their art. So when I first started sewing, especially doing bespoke clothing and doing design and my own selling original pieces, I charged very little. I barely covered the fabric, let alone the work that I put into it. And I know so many really great seamstresses and designers that do the same thing. So, and artists that make amazing, beautiful work, and they just don't value what they do enough. People will not value you unless you value yourself. All right, so my name is Rachel Malasky. I am a third-generation seamstress and also a designer. I have been sewing since I was a kid. So my mother was a seamstress, my grandmother was a seamstress. I grew up in a seamstress shop, and I was the weird kid in school who made my prom dresses and my homecoming dresses and stuff like that. I didn't think I was going to do what I do. I thought I would not. I didn't want to be like my mother. I wanted to do something else, but it just kept sucking me back in. So I ended up doing this most of my life. So I'm going to go over fashion in my opinion. I feel like fashion is a very personal thing. I just hit my mic, sorry. Fashion's a very personal thing. I think that it is something different to everybody, but I'm going to give you my opinion. Okay, so one of the biggest questions that people ask me is kind of where fashion started, where it began, what I think fashion, really means. And to me, anything you do to yourself to make yourself look individual or different is fashion. So that can include your hair, your shoes, your bag, your clothes. It can include scarification. It can include tattooing. It can include your makeup and, obviously your clothes. So when fashion started was the first people on the planet. When they first decided I'm going to wear my pelt this way instead of that way, They created fashion when they first decided to paint mud on their face in a certain way, different than everybody else. They started fashion, right? So it is the art of being unique, of creating a uniqueness about yourself. Wearable art. So we know that as far back as the cavemen, we can't look at their clothes, right, because they dissolve and they deteriorate, but we can look at other things like jewelry they made. We know that they tattooed themselves. We know they did scarification. We know that they did other things like that. So most of the time, their things were made out of, their decorations were made out of bone, human bone, animal bone, seashells, things like that, what they could get. We know that men and women wore skirts first, right? It's just a piece of something, a piece of hide, a piece of fabric. It can be leaves. It can be almost anything out there. And they wrapped it around their waists. We know that the short skirts were often for warriors and long skirts for other people if they had the materials to provide them. They were easy to make, they were cool in warm temperatures, and they had a great range of motion. So you think of some of the warriors, earliest warriors, they could really move in those skirts, right? So clothing had a lot to do with where you lived. Warmer temperatures, you stuck with cooler things, lots of open skirts and dresses. Colder weather areas, they developed pants and shirts sooner. So in Hawaii and Fiji, they really didn't develop shirts and pants until the white people brought them. They didn't need them. But if you go to the Inuits in Alaska, they had to keep themselves warm. So and here, like the Spartans, they were warriors. They were men, the manliest of men, but they didn't wear pants. They wore skirts. I always love, like, the Scottish and the Welsh and the Irish, they've always got to be different. So they are colder weather people, but they went ahead and kept wearing skirts anyways. So they didn't develop pants for a little while. But then you've got even the Egyptians, you've got the Greeks, the Romans. Skirts were it was a gender neutral thing. Everyone wore them. So where did pants come from then? The colder weather climates were definitely important, but we believe the very first pants that were ever invented were nomadic tribes spread across Eurasia. These tribes were nomadic, domesticated horses. The men and the women wore them. They wore the pants to protect their legs while riding. I don't know who rides horses here, but I ride horses. The guy in the cowboy hat, I should have guessed. So you would not want to ride a horse without pants on. It would not be comfortable, right? Okay, so you would get chafing. Also, when you're riding a horse, think of the Native American Indians. When you're riding a horse through the woods, you don't want the brambles and the thorns and things to hit your legs. You get all cut up. So it was protection from that kind of activity. So let's see. Pants are a lot harder to make than skirts. They require tools. A skirt, all you can do is you can wrap it around and literally stick a bone through it and keep it on yourself. But pants, you have to make them. You have to sew them together. They require multiple pieces and tools. So usually you have to have needles. The needles were made from bone. You had to heat the bone. You had to chip it into pieces and then smooth it into a needle and then drill a hole in the end. So they're not easy to make. So you didn't make pants unless you really had to, unless you really needed them. The earliest remnants of pants we've ever found is over 3,000 years old. And they were found up in Eurasia, around like Mongolia and that area, little colder areas. They were the horse riding people, the nomadic people. This is one of the first artifacts we have showing pants. And that's actually a female warrior riding a stallion. Oh, and I just turned the page. So are pants for men? Are we past that? Shouldn't we be way past that? That pants are only for men? But as of March 2019, here in North Carolina, a charter school prohibited girls from wearing pants. And they had to fight that in court. So then the same month, a Pennsylvania girl by the name of Hannah Kozak fought her school board for the right to wear pants to her high school graduation. So it's not something in the past. We're not talking about something 100 years ago. Even today, we're still having to kind of fight for our right to wear what we want to wear, right? So are dresses for only women? No, that's such a new concept. Dresses historically have been for everyone, skirts and dresses.
I ain't gonna lie, if I ever see a dude wearing a dress, I'm gonna be freaked out.
Okay, well then don't go to the Highland Games, because if you go to the Highland Games, half the guys are wearing kilts. And those guys are big guys. They're big, strong, hulky guys. They're not wussy guys. These are big guys. So Billy Porter is one of my favorites. I just think he is an amazing designer and stylist. He doesn't design clothing, but he styles people. And I think he's a wonderful, I think this is Christian Siriano he's wearing. But just really beautiful clothing, and he's a dude. But I love the things he wears. So I don't think dresses are for girls and pants are for boys. At the time, I don't know. Okay, so customs change. This is my point. So here's some really weird customs people thought were beautiful over the years. The Japanese used to dye their teeth black. Men wore corsets. That's where they started. Men. Women used to put bustles on to make their butts look big. In China, they used to bind their feet to make them have tiny feet. And then men wore heels. They actually started. That's where heels started too, were for men. Short men who wanted to be taller. Okay, so early fashion was dictated by need and by want. Yes, they used fashion to look prettier or scarier. Some used fashion to look thinner, but usually fatter. Generally fatter was the thing. So they used it to show their wealth or their skill level. Fashion denoted your job or your interest. What was in fashion was different from place to place and year to year. So these are all people using fashion in a way that we don't today. Right? So here's some other examples of different, all over the world, what was considered fashionable. So does society dictate fashion? To some degree, yes. We try to get out of it, but we're always stuck in it. Because think about it. What do you wear to a political speech? You're not going to wear your pajamas. You're going to wear a suit, right? What do you wear to a funeral? What do you wear to a rock concert? You're not going to wear your wedding dress. What do we put baby girls in blue? And do we put baby boys in pink? We should. Why do we care? That's such a new concept just in the last 100 years. What that baby boy means blue and girl, pink means girl. So fashion designers love to break those rules. We love to do things that we're told not to do. So we go out of our way to be like, pants? Why do we need pants? Bras? Why can't they show? I want to wear a corset on the outside. I want to make my dress out of bubble wrap. I want to, you just do what you want. And designers love to do that. Okay, so different types of design. There's a lot of different types of fashion, and you can't go over all of them. But haute couture is one of my most favorite ones. It's crazy. You never know what they're going to come out in. You usually can't wear it in public, but I love it. So it means high sewing or high dressmaking. The concept of a designer and a seamstress being two separate things is something that's happened in the last 100 years. Before that, a seamstress was your designer. So if you are a seamstress, you can be a designer. If you're a designer, but not a seamstress, you're not going to be a good designer. And that's my opinion. But I've dealt with a lot of designers, and if they don't know how to sew, they're terrible. So luxury, expensive stuff. Think Birkin handbags, $25,000 each. Jimmy Choo shoes, $15,000 each. Those are limited items. There's not many of them. They're very high quality and very expensive. Ready to wear, that's what we wear. That's what you're all wearing. You're going to find it at Walmart. You're going to find it in the mall. It's mass produced. It's fairly inexpensive. What I do is bespoke clothing. So bespoke clothing is made to order, tailored specifically to you. They are one-of-a-kind pieces you will find nowhere else. The designer and the customer work together to design the item. So I generally work with costuming now. I used to do wedding gowns and prom dresses and things like that more, but I've kind of leaned away from that. And all of these are my pieces. I designed them, I made them, I put them on models, and I shot them. I didn't shoot them, Robert shot them. So these are all some of my other pieces. I have hundreds and hundreds, and I just grabbed a few. So these are some of my customers who sent me their photos. I do not take pictures of my customers' clothing. I feel it's their intellectual property, so I don't photograph it. But if they send me pictures, so this is just a couple of people I've done over the years. This little lady is so sweet. She's an author, and we made a costume for her character in her book. So. But, okay, so how do I do what I do? I know.
Actually, Rachel, this
okay.
is a good time
okay.
for us to go into. I think you're going to answer all of this for us.
Okay. Do you want me to do the question and answer now?
I think this is a
okay.
good time to go into the
Sure.
questions.
Sure.
And then we can finish up and then see if any of the kids have questions.
Sure. Okay.
All right.
Tell me your question.
So I think you've already covered your professional title
You're right.
is seamstress, right?
Seamstress, and I would slash designer since I don't just sit and hem pants anymore. I only make custom clothing.
And what steps did you take to get here? Are you self-taught? Did you go to a technical school? Were you in an apprenticeship, or did you go to college?
I would say apprenticeship and self-taught. So my mother's being a seamstress. I sewed with her for years and years and years. I worked under her. And then I self-taught myself. Any skills I felt like she didn't, any gaps I needed to fill, I filled them.
So if a student was interested in this and they wanted to do an apprenticeship, what could they do to maybe secure an apprenticeship or try to go in that direction?
I mean, I would learn to sew on my own. Do some sewing on your own. When you go to a seamstress shop or a tailor shop and you ask to be an apprentice, they're going to want to know you have some skill. You know how to turn a machine on, you know how to push the pedal. So I would do that first. Watch some YouTube videos if you don't know how. But I would do that first and just get the very basics. You can sew a straight line. Once you can do that, most seamstresses would be willing to take you on to teach you at least a little bit here and there. They might not have all day every day, but maybe 2 hours a day they'd have for you. So
on average, what does your day-to-day look like being a seamstress designer?
For me, at any given time, I have between 80 and 180 clients that I'm working with. So I work with a large pool of clients. It takes between a month and 3 months to even 6 months sometimes to get a piece done. So for me, it is, I go through all the clients that I have that we need to still pick fabric. I go through all the clients that I have that we still need to make changes to the design. Then I sit down and I go through the ones that I can actually start working on. The ones that I have the fabric, we have the design settled, we have all the measurements, and we have everything we need. So I'll spend half my day at the computer and half my day at a sewing machine.
All right, and then what could you tell us, and this is where it goes into your work, why is your work essential?
I just think that personal expression is such an important part of especially our lives today. You say something with your clothing when you go out. You say something with your appearance to the world. So when you step out that door, what are you saying? And without somebody like me, I don't think that you can have a clear message. So I think it's important to have people to design those unique pieces and to design clothing to give you a clear outlet for your message.
And then my last question, what advice would you give us if we wanted to enter your field?
I would say learn to sew. So that's where I was, well, wait, I went back, didn't I? Okay, so know your fabric. Knowing those things that you work with are so important. If you don't know fabrics, if you don't know the right stitches, if you don't know those things, we call them notions. So what zipper goes in what dress, what type of thread you want to use, what type of interfacing. If you don't know those basics, the foundations, you cannot build a good garment. And that's what I was going to say about this. So you wouldn't have a contractor work on your house that doesn't know the difference between sheetrock and cement board. You wouldn't have a mechanic work on your car that doesn't know a radiator from well, they don't do radiators anymore too. I'm not a mechanic. You want one that knows the parts. So you need somebody that knows those tools. And I think it's extremely important. And I was going to show you. So here's a real life example, if we have time. So these are called breeches. I know they're costuming, so you just have to work with me here. But it's a type of pants that people wore, a couple hundred years ago, 1700s and stuff like that. So the very common breeches. So I had a young lady who is a very big influencer on Instagram, and I do a lot of costuming for her. And she was copying a costume from Our Flag Means Death. Do you remember that? Okay. So he has a costume it's all teal. It's really cute. So we did the jacket, we did the bloomers, we did the pants, we did everything. But she wanted these skin tight. Now when we first started designing the costume, I told her, you want to use real silk. This is a Dupioni silk. It has no stretch, no give. It's very, very stagnant. It's just not going to move for you. But she wanted them skin tight. And I said, well, for a photo shoot, that might be okay. But you're not going to be able to wear them anywhere else. But she got them and she said, you're right. If I go to sit, if I go to bend, if I go to move, I feel the seams are going to split. And I said, okay, well, let's move towards something else. And she said, no, just put a gusset in the side. So that's what this is, this little side seam. It almost looks like a tuxedo line. So we made them larger. She got them back and she said, no, they're just too baggy. I don't like the baggy butt. I don't like the baggy legs. I want them to be tight, right? Almost like leggings. So I said, we cannot make them out of this fabric. We have to use a different fabric. So we used a stretch knit taffeta. They look great. She looks super cute. I should have brought a picture, but I didn't. So she just posted them today on Instagram. So it's really important to know that and understand that she's a sweet girl, but she's not a designer, right? She doesn't know her fabric. So that was kind of, we were going to talk about that. And then I have this other example. So here's just like a dress I wear. I wear a lot of stretch knit because it's comfortable. It's like wearing pajamas. So I have this little dress, right? I'll have someone come in every week. I have somebody do this. They come into my shop and they say, I love this dress. I want it in brown. So I bought this fabric. And I want you to make this dress in brown. What's wrong with the picture here? It's totally stiff. This is bridal satin. You cannot make a dress to pull over your head. How would you get your head in there? But because they don't know fabric, they don't understand. So she went and wasted and bought 4 yards of fabric we cannot use to make this dress for her, right? So that's how important it is to have the right fabrics and to know what you're doing, to know your craft. Okay, so we would have to redesign the dress. So my advice is learn your craft. Go to college if you can. If not, learn everything you can. An internship, other people around you, anyone who sews, get out there and learn about it. Go to fabric stores, pick up fabric, play with fabric, use different types of fabric. Do the job. Make anything you can. You want to make clothes for your doggy? Make clothes for your doggy. Okay, whatever you want to make it, make it. Practice, practice, practice. Never stop learning. I'm 48 years old. I still learn new techniques today. I do it all the time. I'll see something new come out and I'll be like, I want to learn how to put that pocket in there. I want to learn how to do that crazy gusset in the crotch. I want to learn how to do those things. So I go ahead and keep learning. Listen to those around you, especially those who know more. Ask for advice, ask for ideas, ask for information. Try something new, even if it sounds crazy. I love when designers use unconventional items and they use unconventional fabrics. I mean, I love it, love it, love it, and I think you should. When I was in high school, this girl made her prom dress out of bubblegum wrappers. And I thought it was the coolest thing. So, and enjoy what you do. Don't do it if you don't enjoy it. I keep hitting this button. And know your worth. One of my biggest mistakes when I went out and started sewing for other people was not charging enough money. What I do is worth something. It is expensive. When you learn how to do this and you know your craft, what you do is worth something. And your skill is worth something. Know that. And charge for it. So my assignment to you, my sketch assignment, right? Is that what we're supposed to end with? No?
Before we do the
Okay.
assignment, does anybody have questions for Rachel?
Questions?
It's okay if you don't, but if you have questions, now's the time to.
Is anybody interested in fashion?
Depends on what kind.
Depends on the kind.
I think the student that we had interested in fashion
It's not here.
is today.
That works. Okay, well, if no one's got any questions.
Now we go on the assignment.
Okay, so I want you to sketch what you think you would be wearing in 10 years. So think about yourself in 10 years. Where will you be? What will you be doing? What will you be doing? And what will you need? What will you want to wear then? Will you be a mom? Will you be a lawyer? What will you be doing? And that's going to determine what you would be interested in wearing. So usually people start with a sketch form like this. I was going to copy you guys one out and then I realized, oh, you got to use your books. So usually people start with a blank sketch form, just a blank body. If you can't sketch that, I have had people do stick figures. They just start with a stick figure.
You draw close?
You can do whatever clothes you want.
Argument.
Yes. So I want you to think about that. I've got some different scraps of fabric and different types of fabric. Some designers really take their inspiration from that. So I'm going to pass it around with a pair of snips, and you guys can snip off a piece if you want them to add to your, put it next to your, your sketch. A lot of designers, we kind of stick our fabrics next to our sketches as we go to kind of help us move along and inspire us. I lied and I moved over here, I'm sorry. So pass it around and just let everybody have a look at the fabrics and see if they can grab something they like.
It's right near the adults.
In and away.
So
You know what I mean? Like this kind of fabric, but not maybe this color.
Yeah.
I gotta go, you know, like, maybe I'm okay if I do, it's just a little. Was it okay? Are they on?
You could add a black pocket.
Wear it. Yeah. My birthday.
I had.